So just a couple of slides and then we'll jump into actually Pivot itself. I am not entirely sure how familiar everybody on the call is with Pivot. So just a couple of slides to set up the background for those who might not have used it before, and then we'll jump in and see the actual system. So as Robert had mentioned, this is one of your sources for funding discovery. I do want to emphasize that all of the opportunities that you see in Pivot are editorially curated, which means we do have a team of real people who are going through adding new opportunities and updating the opportunities that are there. Everybody at the institution has access to Pivot. I like to mention this because for all the faculty that are on the call, that means your grad students and your undergrad students have access to Pivot as well. And there is funding opportunity for everybody in Pivot, including undergraduate students. So some are funding opportunities and research funding and things of that nature. We do update everything daily. So usually if there is an update to an opportunity, that will be reflected in Pivot within 24, maybe 48 hours. Again, it is real people who are trying to track all of this, but it's all there. And there is usually anywhere from $60 to $70 billion of funding that's available in Pivot based on what the sponsors mention. And I'll show you where you can see that when you're logged into the system. We will talk about each of these in a minute when I switch into the live system, but I do like to point it out here. We are tracking opportunities from a number of different types of opportunities, and so that could be research, which is what I think most people on the call today are interested in. Research opportunities make up about 40% of what's in Pivot on any given day, but we also have opportunities specific to artistic pursuits, to equipment, things like dissertation or postdoctoral training, program and curriculum development, which I know is very popular right now, and you can filter by all of that. So you can use Pivot to find opportunities that are not just for research. Additionally, we are tracking from a wide variety of sponsors that of course includes the federal government, but it also includes private foundations, local government, professional societies like American Psychological Association, and you can filter by all of that as well. So all that to say that if you are already tracking something like federal grants at grants.gov, most of that will be in Pivot, but then on top of that, you can use Pivot to find funding from different kinds of sponsors. And everything that you see here in terms of search and navigation, I'm going to show you. So I'm actually going to switch into the live system now, and instead of just showing you slides about how to do the searching, I'm going to show you how to go ahead and actually do the searching itself. Before I start that, because I know the request for today was to talk about how to search, save, and manage in Pivot, specifically in reference to COVID-19, I did want to mention that there are two other resources related to COVID that might be of interest to you, and I can share these links with you after the demo. So the first is that ProQuest Ex Libris is maintaining a running list of the most recent funding opportunities from COVID, and in this highlighted list here, so you can scroll through this. You could click on View Opportunity in Pivot to look at any of these in detail. So I will share this link with you, and it's getting continually updated as things are closing or being released. And then we also have Research Professional, which is a counterpart product in Europe that we acquired back in 2018. Research Professional runs a news feed related to funding and news related to funding as well. So you can look specifically here for the USA and see some of the most recent funding news related to what's happening with COVID as well. So I can share both of those links with you. But let's go ahead and actually talk about Pivot itself. So again, because I'm not entirely sure what the range of experience is with Pivot, I want to talk in a little bit of detail about just what you're seeing in Pivot as a whole, and then dive into the actual searching. So as a Pivot user, this is the screen that you're seeing when you log in. This is Pivot itself. It's the live website. It's the exact same website you would log into. And it's just set up with a profile for me based on what I did in my academic career. So when you log in, you have this home screen button. I know oftentimes people sort of ignore the home screen button, but this will actually be important when we talk about organizing and managing those opportunities that you're interested in. So we'll come back to that in a moment. And then you have the funding tab. This is where we'll do our searching, and we'll start here. And then you have your profiles tab. I know that there was an interest in talking about collaborator discovery, not only how to find good collaborators, but how to increase the odds that you will be found as a Collaborator as well, so we'll talk about that. But in addition to those, and what I won't spend much time on today, are the papers invited and the awards tabs that you'll have. Papers invited is also editorially curated. It's a list of usually calls for presentations at journals or at conferences, many of which turn into special issues of journals. And you can search here by topic. So if you are looking for somewhere to potentially present work, or you're moving into a new line of research, especially as people are shifting into things like COVID research, this is a good place to find opportunities to share that work. And then we just added the awarded grants database in February. So even if you're a past Pivot user, you may not have noticed that this was added. So this is now a running database of past awarded grants. You can search for past awarded grants using a basic search, or we have the advanced search. You can look by the specific title of the award, by a specific investigator, award year, institution, all those filters you can see here. And what's nice is then you can actually see a description of an awarded grant. So the abstract, amount, investigators, and things of that nature. If you are looking at an opportunity in Pivot and we have information about past awards for that specific grant, you will see a link to that in the detailed opportunity page. So again, just nice to kind of give you some insight into what's been awarded previously. All right, so let's talk about the searching then. While I am going to use COVID-19 as my topic that I'm searching for, all of the tips and tricks I'm going to give you to searching are of course relevant to anything that you might want to be searching for. So there are 3 ways to search in Pivot. We're going to spend most of our time using the advanced search, but I do just want to point out the other 2. So you can do a very basic search here, putting in any keyword to just search by text. You can also search by a specific sponsor, so you could put the name, or if you want to browse who our sponsors are, you can see the full list here. If we don't have any active opportunities for that sponsor, they'll just be grayed out as you see here, but then you can at least see if that's a sponsor that is included in the database. You can also search by a keyword, and the keyword is actually very important, so I want to make sure that everybody's familiar with the keywords. The keywords come from a controlled vocabulary that we actually maintain. It's about 3,500 words. We review and edit it once or twice a year, adding new terms that have become popular in academic research or that users have requested for us to add. So the keywords are helpful because we tag all of the opportunities with keywords. So it's valuable information when you're trying to get to good funding opportunities. You can search for a keyword by just typing it in. So we can do something, I'm going to use leadership actually as my example here, just to show you that there are multiple different paths to where the keyword leadership appears, and you can select which of these makes the most sense for your search. Or you can also open the drop-down box here, and you can look through all of our different places to see the keywords here as well. You can also see the keywords in the advanced search, so I'll show you that in a moment. The second way that you can search is with using our interactive funding widget wheel here. That number in the middle is what is telling you how much money is available in Pivot. It's an underestimate because not all sponsors have a specific amount. But more importantly, if you mouse around the wheel, these are all opportunities specific to different disciplines. So you might be interested in health and medicine. This entire chunk of the wheel and that $25 billion is health and medicine funding. You can then narrow down across these different widgets to more specific areas of research. So maybe vaccines is something you're interested in right now. Once you click on that wedge of the wheel, then it takes you to all of those results. Now, of course, the wheel is not the most efficient way to search, but I do think that if you're new to using Pivot or you are specifically interested in searching by a discipline, it's a nice way to start. I will point out that once you have that list of results for that specific area of the widget, you can always click Refine Search, which you see right here, and it will take you to the advanced search screen where you can start refining what you're looking for. So let's go ahead and talk about the advanced search because that's really what most of you will be doing. So when you go into the advanced search here, you see 2 parts to the screen. The first half are all filters that it will match on. The second half are those same filters, but you can opt to exclude opportunities using any of those filters. I like to make sure you're aware of both of those because I often find it very valuable to use the exclude function. Sometimes it's just easier to indicate what you want left out than trying to select everything that you want included. So let's go ahead and talk about some good search tips. And I love that you're interested specifically in COVID because COVID is one that actually does require a little bit of specific searching. So I always start here with matching on just a general term. So in this case, we might want to use COVID. And if you're searching for COVID, you're probably tempted to write that phrase, COVID-19. What we have learned, especially because of COVID, is that the system doesn't actually recognize the hyphen, and so it won't return all the results for COVID. The best way to search for COVID funding is to search for COVID with the asterisk at the end. What that's going to do is just return any phrase, any words that have COVID at the start and end with something else related to COVID. So that's the best way to search for COVID funding, COVID with the asterisks at the end. Now, of course, some sponsors might be actually writing coronavirus as well. So you might want to type out coronavirus, or similarly, you could do corona and the asterisk so that it pulls up everything related to that. Another kind of special search feature. Oh, to access the website, that's a great question. I saw that just come in on the chat. So it's an institutional subscription, so everybody at CUNY has access to it. You can, in fact, just go to this address here, pivot.proquest.com. I will double check on how your account is set up, but you should be able to just log in with your institutional email address. Depending on if single sign-on is set up, you would be able to sign in that way as well. And I don't know if Dan is on the call and wants to chime in, but I believe Pivot is also likely listed through your sponsored programs or other offices as well. Good question. Logging in is the first step. And I'm going to come back to that with your profile. So if anybody out there is thinking what she's saying about I have a profile, we'll come back to that in just a moment too. So the other caveat about searching for COVID here, and what I've realized in supporting some of our other customers, is that a lot, if you leave this filter as all fields, one of the challenges you'll come across is that many sponsors are adding notes to their funding opportunities saying that there's a delay because of COVID. Because of that, those opportunities, when you search the entire description of the funding opportunity, those opportunities are getting captured because, of course, COVID is actually in the description. If you want to be sure that you're really getting funding opportunities for COVID research, I would recommend actually changing this to the abstract to ensure that COVID or coronavirus or some version of those terms is showing up in the abstract for the opportunity itself. The other features that you are seeing down here are amount. So if you are looking for a specific amount for your research, you know that there's a minimum or a maximum. You can set that here. You can also set if there's a deadline, especially for COVID research. This might be very important. If you know that you need an opportunity that has a deadline coming up in the next month, you could select that, or you could even do something after a certain date if you know that you won't have time to submit an application within the next 2 months, for example. So that's amount and deadline. Limited submission just marks whether or not it's a limited submission opportunity. Activity location lets you know or lets you select whether there's any requirements for the actual location the research is being done in, and we're going to come back to that in just a moment. Citizenship or residency is definitely a filter that you want to use. We are a global database, and so there are opportunities for residents of countries outside of the US. So if you are a US resident or citizen, you'd want to select that. By default, it also includes any unrestricted or unspecified opportunities as well. Of course, if you are not a US citizen, then you can simply select a different country. Here we see those filters I mentioned in the slides. So funding type here, in this case, again, you could select equipment, prize or award, program or curricular development. Maybe we're interested specifically in research funding. Here's the second place we see those keywords. I actually prefer this as the location to add those keywords. If you click Browse here, you actually see all of the different folders. There was a request coming into this call to look for COVID funding across different disciplines, of course, medicine, health, and STEM, but also things like the arts and humanities. So this would be a really great place to set those filters. To start with, we'll start with STEM and health and medicine. So I'm adding those very broad filters here. If I wanted to actually open any of these folders and select more specific subfields under them, I could also do that. By default, the system includes the explode option. All that means is that it's going to include opportunities that have been tagged with health and medicine or any of those sub-tags underneath health and medicine. Applicant type includes different criteria or requirements for the applicants themselves. So you might want to look for some early career work, or you might want to be looking for work that only underrepresented faculty or women faculty could apply for. You could select those options. And then sponsor type lets you select, again, the type of sponsor. So maybe you already feel like you're getting lots of good information about federal US sponsors, and you're really interested in different kinds of private foundations and nonprofits and professional societies and what they're putting out there. I'm going to actually leave those off for right now. I will say in applicant type, this is where I almost always use the exclude feature, because as a faculty member, I am pretty sure you don't want funding that's for graduate students or undergraduate students, so you can go ahead and exclude them here. So that's the advanced search. One other thing that I forgot to mention that I will show you up here is that in addition to the asterisks, to truncate the term here, if you use the quotation, it can search for an entire phrase. So if we wanted something like artificial intelligence, if we don't want it to search for the words artificial or intelligence, we want it to find the actual phrase artificial intelligence, you just want to put that phrase in quotes, and then it will return only instances of that actual phrase. So once you have set up your fields for the advanced search, you're going to click search. You always see the entire search query here at the top. I like to point that out because, frankly, sometimes I forget what I'm searching for, and it's nice to be able to go back and read it, or to make sure that I understand where my and ors are so that I'm using those correctly. Once you get to a search you really like, you can save that search. So here, this could be our COVID research search. And then you can opt whether you would like to get a weekly email that would show you any new opportunities that match that search criteria or any opportunities that were updated. If you don't want to be getting those emails, you can uncheck that box. This saved search will now appear on your home screen, and you'll have a nice shortcut to it. So we'll do that. So if we're looking at this, you can see that I've got 85 results that are here based on all the different filters that we have already set. Now, one of the things I will say with the COVID research is that you see a lot of state-funded work, and so sometimes there are restrictions specific to the location of that research happening. So if you want to make sure that you're not getting a lot of funding opportunities that are specific in terms of activity location, once you have your list of results and you realize that's something you want to change, you can go up and refine your search. We can go down to our activity location. And in this case, you might want to select New York. And then you could include any opportunities where activity location is unrestricted or unspecified. And then sub-entities gives you any more specific locations underneath New York, or super entities includes any of those locations like United States. So the broader locations that would include New York. So we can set that up. So then I can go back and run my search again. And so now we are down specifically to opportunities that are for COVID research, that are for citizens of the US, or that's unrestricted, where the research is happening in New York, or also unrestricted or unspecified. So you have a pretty specific list of funding opportunities. When you're looking at the list of opportunities, you can always filter it even more using these options on the left-hand side. So we have specifically looked at ones that are research. You can see some of them are classified as other types of funding as well. If we really wanted to see all the COVID funding opportunities that are here for STEM, we can go ahead and refine that search. I could go ahead and take off my research filter that I've put on and rerun the search. And now we see we do have more lists because we've added quite a few that are related to program or curriculum development related to COVID and coronavirus. But if I left that off and still only wanted to see those research ones, I could set that filter very quickly right here. So what you're seeing when you're looking at the list of search results, we've tried to provide enough information that you would be able to make some judgments about whether or not a funding opportunity is a good fit for you without having to look at all of the detailed funding opportunity pages for every opportunity that gets returned. So you can see that we always list a deadline. If we've got it, we will anticipate whether that is confirmed. We will indicate whether that is confirmed or anticipated. We also list an amount of funding if the sponsor has provided that. And then of course you see the title and who the sponsor is. And if you click on this magnifying glass, you see the first part of the abstract and eligibility criteria. If you do find opportunities that you already know you're interested in, you can select those opportunities. You could share them out to another user. If it's another user at CUNY, you can just start typing a name or an email address, and if they've claimed their account, it will automatically populate that. But you can share with people outside of CUNY. So if you have other collaborators and you would like them to be able to see an opportunity, you can share it with them. Even if their institution doesn't have Pivot, they still have access to see the opportunity detailed page for, I believe, 2 weeks. If you know that you definitely want to track an opportunity because you're interested in it and you want to get updates, or you've already decided you're applying for it and you want to be getting those updates, you can choose to mark it as tracked or active. We're going to be merging these two buttons here sometime this summer, but right now tracked is meant to indicate this is an opportunity that I'm interested in but haven't yet decided to apply for. Set to active is meant to indicate this is something I am intending to apply for. The other piece I'll point out when you're reviewing the results is that you can see everything in a calendar view. So if you think this is great, but I need to know when deadlines are actually happening, if you select calendar view, you can either choose a subset of these opportunities or you can look at the entire list. And it puts all those deadlines in a nice Pivot calendar so you can see how those are spread out. Again, you could choose a subset, and if you really like them and you want those deadlines in your own personal calendar, you can actually select subscribe. In this case, mine is going to be in Outlook. So it will open my Outlook, and then you will actually get a request that will ask, do you want to go ahead and add all of these deadlines? I probably shouldn't have done it for everything in the list, I'm realizing. Do you want to add all of these deadlines to your calendar? And if you say yes, those deadlines will get added to your calendar. And in fact, they will be updated in real time with what gets updated in Pivot. All right. So let's look at one of the detailed funding opportunity pages that we're seeing here. So we'll take a look at one of these from the HHS. So with any opportunities, this is what the detailed funding opportunity page looks like. You always have a direct link to the sponsor's website, and we will always provide as much information for a funding contact person as we can. We try to make this as specific as possible whenever possible so that if you need to reach out to somebody to ask a question or contact the sponsor themselves, you have everything right here. Here you can see all that criteria that we set before in terms of activity location, citizenship, or residency. You also have the full abstract listed here, and you have the keywords that we're tagging things with. The keywords are really helpful if you get to a funding opportunity that is a really good fit for the type of research that you're doing. I would strongly recommend looking at the keywords that we have tagged that opportunity with so you can determine which keywords you might want to add to your search. One of the other questions I often get is, if I find a really good opportunity, can I just see others that are similar to that? And the answer to that is yes. If I scroll back up here, once you find an opportunity that's a really good match for you, you can click this button that says see more opportunities like this. Once you're looking at a detailed funding opportunity, you also have the chance to track it or set it to active or to share it out with another user. I'm going to come back to the collaborators because I just want to mention the deadlines here. So we will list all deadlines that we have for a funding opportunity here. Once you choose to set an opportunity as tracked or set to active, you can actually, from those ops, add the deadlines to your calendar as well. And then if we go back up here to the potential collaborators, I'll talk in more detail about finding collaborators, but this is really the first place you'll see this option. So if you get to an opportunity that you're really interested in, you'll see a link to find people from inside CUNY that are good matches for this, as well as people outside of it who are good matches. And these outside institutions are all Pivot institutions, and they're the researchers at those institutions. We will talk about how to sort and filter through collaborators in just a moment, so I won't do it here, but I did want you to see that when you're looking at any opportunity, you will see these options to see people inside your institution or outside of it who are a good fit for that. Let me pause there and just ask any questions right now about the searching or about the detailed funding opportunity page. Oh, so if you share an opportunity with somebody who's at CUNY, it will stay in there. Let me go back to Homescreen. It's a good question. So when someone shares an opportunity with you, on your home screen, you have this Received tab. And so here, as a user, you'll see all of the opportunities that people have shared with you. You'll see who shared them and even the date that they shared them on. These will stay here until either the deadline passes and we remove the opportunity from the system, or as a user, this is one of the ways to manage your funding opportunities. When people share an opportunity with you, here's one where you can see it tells me it's already expired. But when someone shares opportunities with you, you can select any opportunity or any set of opportunities. You could mark them as tracked or active if they're good fits for you, or you can just dismiss and remove them altogether. So if you are a user and people are sharing a lot of opportunities with you and the list is getting kind of big, you can just dismiss the ones that you're not interested in, and then they disappear from that list. So if they are from within CUNY and that they've got access to Pivot, of course, those will just stay there forever. They can see them as long as they're in the system. And as you mentioned in your chat, if you're sharing with people who are at institutions that don't have Pivot, then they would just be able to see that detailed funding opportunity page for 2 weeks. So this is the other value of saving your searches. You can see that I've backed out of the search that we just did. I've lost my results page, but on my home screen, I have a tab for my saved searches. And so now there's our COVID research search that we just did, and I can easily click on it and go right back to that full list of results that I was looking at just a moment ago. So you don't have to go in and reset your search criteria every single time you're interested in something. Now, this is a good example because this was specific to STEM and health and medicine. Maybe I want to refine that. Maybe I want to look at the arts and humanities and what kind of research options there are for COVID in those fields. So then I can go down and I can actually change what this search is. So now I'm going to browse, and now I actually want to add arts and humanities. What kind of opportunities are out here for researchers in the arts and humanities? So I'm just going to switch that up. This is not going to change my saved search, but what I can do is I can edit just that one part of the saved search so I don't have to enter all those fields again. And now I can save this as a new search, and this is going to be my humanities COVID search. And so I can go ahead and save that. And that was a nice and efficient way to do it because I didn't have to reset all those other filters. So you can see there are opportunities for COVID research within the arts. A good reason for including COVID or coronavirus in the abstract instead of the title is an example like the Metropolitan Atlanta Arts Fund that we're seeing here, or any of these where you're seeing that COVID's not actually appearing, but it is actually for COVID relief. And there was one, I believe it's this one. This is a great example because if you were just looking for COVID or coronavirus in the title, this wouldn't have shown up. But when you actually expand the abstract, you see that this is directly relevant to providing emergency funding for arts organizations impacted by COVID. And that might be something you are in fact interested in figuring out a way to do. Again, we can always navigate around the screens we've looked at. You'll have a running bar here, so we can just go back to our alert results, and then we could look at this in more detail if we were interested in doing that. And of course, we can always go back and refine this search even further if we're interested in doing that. I believe we don't have our activity location that hadn't been a part of our saved search when we saved it previously. So I can go back and add that in. I did see there was a funding opportunity for Rhode Island and I think for Maryland. So then again, we search, and now we're down to those opportunities that are for the arts and humanities related to COVID, specific to New York, or at least not limited to an activity location outside of New York. And if I do want to save this, I can go ahead. Oh, that's because it's from my previous one. Save it as my humanities COVID search and just update that saved search that I had done previously. All right, so let me once again pause. Questions about the searching or the advanced search? Okay. So then I want to take just a couple more minutes to talk about the home screen and then use some of the last time that we have to talk about that collaborator discovery. So we've already talked about the saved searches tab as well as the received opportunities tab. Here you also have your tabs for your active and tracked searches. So again, a nice shortcut to any of those opportunities that you know you're interested in. On all of these, you have the option to share from here. You can untrack it if you've decided it's not something that you're interested in. You can also add or edit tags to any of these searches or these opportunities. I like to mention this because I think this is really important as you start to save searches and specific opportunities. There's probably a good chance that it'll end up looking like my screen does here, where I've got a big list, but these are either searches or opportunities from a pretty wide range of topics. If you want to be able to filter these, you can simply add a tag to it. That tag can be anything you want it to be. Just know that it doesn't like spaces. You have to use the underscore. So this is, I think, my robotic surgical technology. So maybe I'm interested in surgical tech and I want that to be one of my tabs. I simply create that. And now I could add that tag to any of my opportunities that I wanted to. And then when I'm looking at my lists of saved searches or opportunities, I can filter by anything. So maybe I'm only interested in my opportunities related to my gender studies. I could go ahead and do that. Or of course, you could add a COVID tag to any of these. And just as we can add them to these specific ops, you can also add those tags to your saved searches, and then you can filter by those saved searches as well. So if I only want to see my medical research searches, I can narrow it down by that. If you don't want to be getting all of those emails, you can always just log into Pivot, and for any of your saved searches, it will show you if there are any new opportunities in the last week, as well as the total number of opportunities. So this is a nice way if you think, I don't want to be getting a ton of Pivot emails, right? But I'm just going to log in once a week and see for which of my searches there might be new opportunities. Very easy to do. Then when you click on that search, by default, it takes you just to those new results. And if you want to see all the results, you simply click all. All right. The only other thing I will mention is that your advisor alerts here, these are all of the opportunities that the system is automatically matching to you based on the information in your profile. And so if you're interested in seeing what the system is suggesting to you, you can look here under your advisor tab. Once again, you can select them and you can either mark them as tracked or active if it's something you're really interested in, or you could share it out to somebody. All right. I'm going to switch into talking about the collaborator discovery piece. Before I do that, though, any questions about the searching or the organization within Pivot? All right, so let's talk profiles and collaborator discovery. So if you go to your profiles tab, you see two options. Yes, there's a question in the chat, again, just the difference between tracked and active. And I'll just reiterate that we are going to merge these into just one thing soon because most people don't use them separately. But the intention of how they're used is that tracked is meant to indicate this is an opportunity that I'm interested in. I would like to get updates about it as information's updated in Pivot, but maybe not quite sure I'm applying for it yet. Whereas active is meant to be those opportunities that you are actively applying for or intending to apply for. I mean, that's how we define them, but you can use them however you would like. All right, so for profiles, again, when you're looking at a specific opportunity, you will always see links to those profiles of people within CUNY or outside who are a good fit. But if you just want to do a broader search, under profiles, you have profile discovery and you also have your profile. I won't spend a ton of the time on your profile, but since there was a question about logging in, I assume not everybody has claimed their profiles either. So once you log in using your institutional address, if you go to the top here, instead of it saying your profile, you'll see a button that says claim your profile. That's the first thing you have to do. You just click claim your profile, and then you're going to select your name and I think the correct institutional affiliation if there's more than one person with your name. And you say, yep, this is my profile. Now, at implementation, we will have gone through and potentially added a couple of key pieces of information. We can add some of the bio data that we can pull from other public profiles you might have, so perhaps the description of expertise. We will also have added at least one affiliation for you from the organization. If you would like to add more affiliations, you can do that. And so that's what we may have added for you and you might see when you first look at claim and then look at your profile. You can also edit everything in your profile. You have complete control over what is showing here. You also can add a proxy. So if you're never going to be the person that's editing your profile, but you have an assistant or an admin assistant who might do that for you, you could add them so that they could edit your profile. I will say to maximize the chance that you will be seen as a potential collaborator, I would recommend adding keywords. Again, these are the same keywords that are coming from that controlled vocabulary that we use to tag the opportunities. So not only will it help you be identified as a collaborator, but it will also improve the quality of those recommended matches the system is sending to you. You can add as many keywords as you like, and you can search for them just like we were doing previously. Also, adding even just a link to your CV somewhere can be really helpful, or adding a personal website. So if you have a faculty website or even like your LinkedIn, if you want to add that, you can add that here as well. And then there are tabs for publications, grants, and I believe actually patents as well. I don't think mine is updated here. But you can add your own grants and publications. I will say that we actually have an algorithm and a data source to be able to automatically harvest publication information for researchers. So it's possible that you might see alerts from us saying, hey, we captured this article and we think it belongs to you. Do you want to add it to your profile? And you can say yes. I will point out, because when I first built this profile and I thought they wanted me to add all my publications, I was like, I'm absolutely not typing all of those in. That takes way too long. So if you are getting ready to start building your profile and you're thinking, I'm never going to do this, I actually want to point out that that ability to automatically find publications is valuable here as well. You can also hide publications. So if you want it on the profile, but you don't want it publicly visible, that's fine. And I will point out the profiles are only visible to other Pivot users. So this isn't a publicly visible profile to everybody. Only other Pivot users would be able to see that. But if you want to go ahead and add a new publication to that, I think I have to move my screen here just a moment. You can go ahead and add one, and then as you start typing, it will actually suggest what that might be for you. Here is suggested where if it had automatically captured something for me, it would be there. And so if I click add here, I can start typing. I've already forgotten the title of what my publication is. Oprah Homer House, that's right. We love a snazzy title. So if I start typing the title of my article, you can see that it's actually suggesting to me different articles, and this is in fact the one that I do want to add. So you can select that, and then you can see it's already filled in all of this other data for me, and I can just say okay and add it. So if you're looking at this and thinking, no way, I'm going to manually add all of those, just know you don't have to. For most of them, if you just start typing, it'll actually find and suggest it for you. All right. I don't actually want to save that. The other piece I'll point out, if you're not aware in the profile, is that Pivot integrates with Altmetrics. If you're not familiar with Altmetrics, it tracks mentions of your articles in popular press and social media. I did not have access to Altmetrics as a faculty member, so I was not aware of this. But you can see once I added my publications to my profile, I actually found out that 71 people had mentioned this article, not surprisingly, because it's about Twitter and they tweeted about it. But just an extra value add as a researcher and faculty member, that if you add your publications to Pivot, Altmetric will show up for you if those are getting talked about in the popular press or social media, and you can actually follow through to see what those mentions are. All right, so that's your profile. Again, definitely recommend adding your title, adding your affiliations, and adding those keywords, as well as links to other things. You can also add an ORCID profile, and then we can pull information from ORCID too, so that's there as well. But let's go back to discovering other collaborators. So under profile discovery, you can enter a very broad search term or a name here. Those same search operators apply, like the asterisks or the quotes for a phrase. But you can also do the advanced search here. And on the advanced search, you have a number of different fields. You can indicate in which of those fields on the profile you would like Pivot to be searching. You can also indicate more filters, like specifically what degree does somebody have, or what is their role, what country are they in, what's their affiliation. You could type a specific institution there. So you can just add more filters there. And I will say I didn't actually play with this yet, and we're going to search outside my institution because this is just the ProQuest site and there aren't too many people. But let's search outside my institution for people who are doing COVID research, and maybe I want to specifically select people who have, there's lots of things that you could select here. Let's maybe not do the degree. Let's do a role. We'll specifically select people who are, I don't know, associate professors. So if I do search there, now I'm looking through profiles, or the system's looking through profiles, and it's bringing up everybody that matches that very broad search criteria that I just listed. But you can see that I can also filter this now by specific disciplines. I could filter it by a specific country, or even by a specific name. So we'll use, actually, because technically your institution is outside of mine. So we can put City University, let's see. And then we can select, you can see there are specific units within City University. You can also select just a much broader, the City University of New York. I think when I was trying to do this before, I realized I had to do. So we can do like City College of New York City, for example, just to pick one. And then it will narrow it down here. It's going to load the results. So there are 8 people who have COVID listed somewhere in their profile. So again, if you want to be discovered, good idea to add that to your description of your expertise. And that's pulling up. And now that I have this much smaller list of people who are working within CUNY who appear to have COVID in their profile, I can go look at their specific profiles. It will vary how much information people have in their profile. You can see here that Dr. Rickenbacker has limited, but he has linked to his personal website. So it's very easy for me to get then to his personal website. The idea of discovering potential collaborators is that Pivot essentially brings you to a shortlist. And from that shortlist, you can identify the people that you're interested in perhaps reaching out to. All right. I think that was really all the main points I wanted to touch on. I know we only have until 3 o'clock. And again, the goal was to talk about how to discover, save, and manage grants, and to speak about that specifically related to COVID.